Hey guys, how's it going? This is Charles Woolham, and I've got a few things that I want to talk to you about. We are living in a time right now, excuse me, while I'm being a dad here, picking up after my kids. But we are living in times right now where we need to start taking in consideration on a couple things. Number one, what the government tells you and what the media tells you is what you want to hear. I've been almost obsessed with the some of the murder investigations that some of these big time stars has left with us to try to figure out. Marilyn Monroe's death is by far one of the biggest investigations I've done, and I tell you guys, it's not adding up, which I'm sure you've heard that a lot. Let's start off by saying, on my next video, I'll bring up some of what I've found, some research and some evidence, but let's just start off by saying that she had a relationship with the Kennedy brothers. She went back and forth, and she loved one more than the other. And what had happened when it came down to it, it came down to John F. Kennedy's brother, Bobby. And it came down to him being exposed by his wife and going through a possible divorce, imagining going through all that, and also, representing the Kennedy name through the election period of a Democrat trying to get in office as president. Imagine going through all that. She had made one final call to the White House. Nobody knows what that call was going to consist of. No recordings of that, of course, the government. So there was likely a conversation that me and you will never find out. But so it led to a phone call, and this was in her last hours. It led to last phone call to the White House. And then shortly after that, at 3 a.m., out of the blue, I'm going to say out of the blue because at 3 a.m., you are, a maid, so to speak, is what we call it in 2020. Out of the blue, you notice that the one that hired you to do a position, Marilyn Monroe's room, her light was on. And it seemed kind of odd, and she felt the need to go check on her. Well, the door was locked, so she came on the other side and noticed that she was lying down, face down in her bed. And she had tried to get her attention and couldn't get her to respond. So at that point, she had called psychiatrist Dr. Grinson down to come over and pay a visit. And she made that call before she made the ambulance call. When he got there, he apparently had took charge over Marilyn Monroe, and it has been speculated and was told by the maid that he injected something into her body. And the barbiturates that she had took, it's a sleeping pill is what it is, that she had took was there at her bedside, and the bottle was empty. 60 count, I believe, so that most likely was a full bottle. Prescription that was not used, apparently, if you think about it, unless she took large number of doses. 60 counts, that's a lot of prescription. So that even leads you to believe why she had such a large prescription. One, did she take what she was prescribed and it just built up to, having a full bottle that she could have overdosed on? Or two, was she prescribed before that happened for whatever reason? I mean, there's a lot that you got to think about on 60 counts. I mean, if she took it on a regular basis, she must have recently had that filled, or she wasn't taking it until at that point. So my questions would be, as an investigator, is when was her last prescription filled? And then you could say, well, okay, she wasn't taking her prescriptions, but apparently she took all of it at one time. Not likely. Okay, so anyway. So then the ambulance was called when he couldn't get a response. And they came in, and the coroner came in, and they seen the pill bottle beside her bed that was empty. And they looked around the room and noticed that the window had been broke, that the maid had looked through. And Dr. Grissom, when he came over, apparently the maid had took him to the glass door where you can see in Marilyn Monroe's room. And he couldn't get in, so he broke through to get enough to put his hand in there to unlock the door, come in, and check on Marilyn. But the glass was broken from the inside. Kind of weird, ain't it? Because if you stand on the outside and you punch a glass, the glass will go on the inside, right? Well, the glass, and you can look at your photos and stuff, the glass was on the outside of the door. So that means you would have had to been inside to punch through, and the glass would go on the outside, right? Common sense. Another thing, Dr. Grinson had a key. He had a master key. So, did he leave it at home? Or was this a setup? That's rolling through my mind. We're talking about a star that died, in 1962. Probably not that important to people my age, but it's the concept of the government, how they can wipe the slate clean, cover something up like they've done several other things, and leave you with what you need to know. What you need to know is she overdosed. What you need to know is she was depressed. That's what you need to know. But what do we actually need to know? What do we want to know? We want to know the truth. But the government has left us with what you need to know. Okay, so as I begin to think about the coroner and investigators at that time coming in, looking at everything, they cabbage up all of her files, documents, everything that was in the room, just mandatory stuff. And they notice on the autopsy report, which can be found on Google, is that the autopsy report showed that there was a freshly bruise on her right hip. And it was told by the maid that Dr. Grissom had came in, took a charge, and gave her an injection of something, a fatal injection is how she put it, because she had died shortly after that, is how she said it. So that leads you to believe, did he do it? Well, let's roll out a couple of things. One, her death was ruled out that she had overdosed on barbiturates, a sleeping pill, full bottle, 60 count. Keep that in mind. Well, when they done the autopsy again, they performed an autopsy. They pulled fluids from her lower stomach where your fluids sit on, and they came across a brownish liquid. So they started doing chemical testing, and they found that it was not tied into the sleeping pill. Now, what was it? Not a clue. What do I know? It was not the sleeping pill, the 60 count sleeping pill. Now, so it was ruled out that she had overdosed. There's no evidence to prove she had overdosed. Why do I say that? It wasn't in her stomach. So, why was it ruled out she overdosed? An empty pill bottle. Where the pills went, no idea. Was the pills full of 60? Because it was told she swallowed 60 pills. It would have been in her lower stomach if she had swallowed 60 pills, number one. So, now that we know, well, now that you have heard of what I've said, you will do some investigation on this. I'm sure if you was a die-hard Marilyn Monroe fan or just interested or someone that has time to do it, you want to investigate this and study this, and you'll see the things I'm seeing now. When nothing could be done because evidence and materials and documents went missing after her death. It was there on scene, but went missing after her death. The case went cold. People was convinced that Marilyn Monroe had been murdered. I am convinced she was murdered. She knew too much. She was in with soon-to-be President of the United States at that time, John F. Kennedy. She was in with the Attorney General, which was a high command attorney at that time. Still to this time. She knew too much. Both was Kennedy's. Both had a lot of information that not a lot of people can handle, that are allowed to handle. And that put her as a liability. And her being the sex model she was, she had been used up enough to where there was no need for her anymore. Because finally Bobby had to block Marilyn Monroe's number from calling the White House anymore. Because of his wife, Ethel. He did not want Ethel to know. Now, the cases went cold, right? So we talked about all that. What else do we know? UCLA box, let's see here, 29. In 1962, her death at 3 a.m. There's a box that Dr. Grissom had left. This was not in 1962, what I'm telling you. Dr. Grissom, when he had died, the date's not important. What's important is what I'm about to tell you. When Dr. Grissom had died, he had left office files, all of his patient requests, his seminars, his studies, all of his important files. He had left in the UCLA's library. And a lot of boxes that are strictly confidential, like box 29, is sealed to a certain date. Well, what is box 29? Interesting. Box 29 holds the documents of Marilyn Monroe, all of her visits, all of her evaluations, and could hold the key to Marilyn Monroe's death. Because I'm sure there's things in there that he had performed on her and had spoke with her and, everything he had documented that could lead us in the right direction if he played a part in the murder. And for whatever reason, it was sealed off to 2039. He is assuming that his his only daughter will no longer be around at that time, is how I took it, because that's when no one close enough to Dr. Grissom will be alive at that time. And so, on 2039, we're going to know what's in that box. And, there was one key material that went missing that was there the night of Marilyn Monroe's passing was her red book, her diary. Her diary, she had put in everything, every event that was very traumatizing, that was very important in her life in that diary. It went missing, and we believe that that is one of the biggest keys to her murder. Okay, so now we know that a piece went missing. Do I believe it's in box 39? It's a possibility because Dr. Grissom had a master key to that, to her bedroom, okay, and he was there before anybody was. And I strongly believe Marilyn Monroe's knew too much, and the only way to keep her quiet is to shut her up for good. And it was a cover-up after that, because all the witnesses had a testimony, so to speak, an alibi. Well, we'll say testimony of what had occurred. Well, after everyone was interviewed, and then you go back to do a recap to talk to them again to see if there's anything else missing, everyone's story changed. Interesting. So, what happened to Marilyn Monroe? Well, my next video, I'll pull up some of these things that I have found and studied on, and I'll let you be the one to decide that. Why did I do this video? I done this video because we need to understand that the people we support, which we should, in a way we should kind of keep our distance from, does not tell us what we want to know, because can we handle it? No. There is things that we cannot handle that the government keeps from us. And the moral of the story is this: what happened to Marilyn Monroe was a cover-up.